What's behind the polling numbers?
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
The absolute brightest of political minds here this evening with Ted Nesi from WPRI and Joe Fleming, Rhode Island's lead pollster, to talk about some of the numbers behind the numbers with the latest WPRI, Roger Williams, Fleming and Associates, Acme Products poll. So a lot of branding going on around here, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to have you in. Thanks very much. It's Wednesday evening, and last night at the State House, it was pretty busy. Headline here with you just say G-U-N and they come running, right?
Bills that they're coming out with right now are really trying to curtail people's Second Amendment rights. They're not going to do anything for safety. It's just another attempt at trying to limit the Second Amendment.
The reason so many people showed up today is because they're terrified that they're going to lose their guns.
So a couple of thousand people crowded the State House. Reportedly about 400 to 500 were signed up on the Senate side to weigh in on specific bills that would take semi-automatic and semi-automatic rifles away from the citizens. On the House side, a more reasonable hearing in House Finance regarding red flag and bump stocks. Now, look, what I was hoping for, some of those yellow shirt people would go over to the House side and say, by the way, FYI, if with limited scope, we'd like to see law enforcement be able to rush to a judge and then get to somebody's place where they might be storing weapons. Those who say on social media, I don't like my fifth grade teacher, guess what? I'm going to take it out on them, and I got the guns to prove it. Duh, right? Right now, we don't have laws that allow for the immediate seizure of those weapons. I wish everybody could get together on what I think is a common ground thing for most people who view this as a serious concern post-Parkland. Otherwise, it's just the script. I don't see how in heaven's name we're going to get relief on specific weapons. But we'll have more and more conversation on that, pro and con, over the course of the next few weeks as that legislative session heats up. In the meantime, the political class, all a chatter regarding the latest WPRI poll, and you know, I'm happy the company is investing in this kind of stuff because it ain't cheap and it's absolutely needed. Here's the headline poll, I guess. Gina Raimondo and Alan Fung, a couple of points apart, and Joe Trillo is at 6%, and he's gonna change the race at 6%. And Alan Fung, Joe. Come on back, Jess. I'm doing my impersonation.
Oh my gosh.
And Alan Fung is just PO'd that I'm in the race. And that's true.
It is.
In a way, right?
Rightly so.
Oh. Rightly so. Welcome, fellows.
Thanks for having us.
The Brain Trust is here. Talk amongst yourselves. So, the background, what is the status and strategy for the company to be polling over the course of the 2018 season?
Well, well, first of all, we have a new partner, as you mentioned, Channel 12. We've sometimes polled on our own, sometimes had a partner. We're now partnering with Roger Williams University. The university is sharing in the cost. You're correct when you said it's expensive to do these polls, and that's not because Joe's making a big profit, as far as I know, but because you have to make a lot of telephone calls to get an accurate sample. People sometimes say to us, you only called 400 people. Well, the point is we're calling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people beyond that, thousands of people sometimes, to get one that reflects the Rhode Island electorate so we get an accurate one. So that costs money. Channel 12 has been polling now with Joe since 1984, so we have a long history of it. We wanted to continue that. But we needed a partner to make sure we could do it the right way, and Roger Williams stepped up and joined with us. So we're going to do a series of polls. We don't have a set number. I would say pretty likely we'll save a lot of the polling till later in the year because things don't change that much in these first months, as you know, Dan. But we want to make sure people can have accurate information both about where the race stands and also what voters are saying about the issues.
What's the data, Joe, on cell lines to landlines? Period. I mean, does the portions like 25% cell on this poll, right?
Yeah.
Is that, I've never researched this, is that what the general population phone status is?
I think it's moving higher and higher towards cells, less and less with landline. I don't have the exact number, but we try to add as many cell phones as we can. The problem with cell phones is you can't use the automated dialers to dial those numbers. You have to dial them by hand because of the law. So when you do that, the cost of calling a cell phone is extremely expensive. So we have to factor all that in. So we try to get like 20, 25% of the sample, at least cell phones. Sometimes we get even higher. Sometimes you call a home phone and it transfers you over to a cell phone. So the first question we always ask people is, do we reach you on a landline or cell phone? And if it's a cell phone, is it safe to talk to you right now?
Okay, well, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I'm
world.
confident in these results that we came out with. You know, from some of it's just a feel, for how is the mood, what do you hear, what do you see, from covering this stuff for a while, and trying to get a sense of what I hear the campaigns are seeing internally when they're doing their polling. They're, as I know you sometimes fight to get that data from folks, Dan, but they're very unwilling. But you can still get a sense. Even my proxy sometimes is how hard they fight me on whether this is accurate. And I'd say this is a poll that we really didn't get much pushback from any side. That we would never claim this is like it's exactly 38.2 to 35.6.
It's a really good point because when they think you're an outlier, they scream bloody murder.
Yes, they do.
They do.
Let's go back to the front page again, Jess. That same poll that we put up there, because this is the kind of front and center marquee numbers. Raimondo, a couple of points ahead of Fung, and then Joe Trillo.
The amazing thing to me, Dan,
there.
on this is if you look at that, it's like nothing has changed in the entire time since we had the 2014 election. Alan Fung got, I think, just over 36% in that election. Gina Raimondo had 40 point something, so she's down 2 points, which is in the margin of error. It basically, I think Ken Block said on Twitter, you look at this poll and it seems like the Bob Healy voters from last time still don't want to vote for either of them and are sitting on the side.
I got to confront this. How do we got Joe's head in the shot here? I'm going to come over here for a second. I mean, sometimes you can ignore it. Other times it's like, what is that, a squirrel going on there? Sorry, Joe. It's just
no problem.
We're all a little gray, but for heaven's sakes. Okay. Anyway, no, I get that point. It really has been static.
It has been. There's been very little change. I mean, Gina won by 5% in 2014, and right now we're seeing basically the same type of margin with a margin of error, 17% undecided. And Ted's correct. You don't know if they want to vote for Fung or Gina at this point. They really haven't decided if they want to support either one of these people. These are a lot of people that probably supported Bob Healy 4 years ago.
The difference is, and we could throw you graphic after graphic, but let me just tell you what the numbers say, and these guys can react to it. The difference is Gina Raimondo is topped out in terms of her known quotient. In terms of her favorability rating, which is higher than this number, it's at 50%. There's only a 4%, I don't know. And when it comes to her performance rating, which is at 38%, we have the performance rating data. We don't have the performance rating data, but it's at 38%.
Right.
Yeah.
But the unknown is 2%. Meaning,
yes,
they've got her figured out.
Yeah.
Can she nudge the numbers? Most likely.
Yes.
But not a lot.
No, what happens is she can nudge the numbers, especially among Democrats. When you look at favorability, like 73% of Democrats have a favorable opinion of her. For job performance, it's like only 55%. Voting for her is like 63%. She needs to take that 63% and move that up to 75, 80% of Democrats supporting her, because she's losing badly among the Republicans, which you would expect. She gets 6% there. But she's losing among the independents by 12%. In 2014, our last poll, where we had Gina ahead by 5 points, the independent voters were evenly divided between her and Alan Fung, where now she's losing that vote.
Yeah, her path to re-election right now is swaying enough of those people between that, we have 38% people saying she's doing an excellent or good job. Those people, that's right around what she's getting in the poll. We have 31% saying she's doing a poor job. Those people aren't going to vote for you, unless something radically changes. So you've got that 30-ish% in the middle who say she's doing a fair job. Some of those folks are persuadable. Some of those folks, you could get them to say, well, I may not think you're the best governor we've ever had, but when I look at my options, all right, I'll give you another term to finish up your effort and whatever.
And of course, you got a 17% number that are jump ball in the big question as to who they support. What's fascinating is the unknown quotient. Alan Fung has a 24%. Either I don't know him or I don't have an opinion on him.
Right.
Which I don't know. Some might say there's space to fill there. There's a hill that's climbable. At the same time, he's been a long-time Cranston mayor. He's already run for office, which was why, in many ways, even though I like him personally very much, I think he is a B- player at best. He has not established himself at all as a potential gubernatorial guy.
Keep in mind, people don't zero in on who all these people are. Okay, Alan Fung's mayor of Cranston. They don't know much about him, so they're not giving an opinion. Well, when you're the governor, a U.S. senator, or president, people do see you a lot more often, hear what you're saying. When you're a mayor, they may know the name, but don't have an opinion of you.
Well, let's just, Jess, can you jump down on your list and throw me the unknown quotient?
this is
Because
really
just in
interesting.
general, that's you got to have a 72-inch screen for that one. But we made our own graphic here.
Yeah.
This is the thing that blows me away. How would you like to be State Representative Joe Trillo, who's running as independent, or Patricia Morgan, who's running as a Republican? And we also have polling data that contrasts Patricia against Gina as well. But think about this. Those two people are seasoned veterans of the State House, and most people pick their nose over their existence. They have no idea.
This is the kind of stat, I think, for people who are tuning in tonight. We're glad you are, and now listen to Dan on the radio or watching on 12 News. This should be a vivid reminder, that stat, of how little a lot of voters really are paying close attention to politics, and that's just human nature, right? The governor is all over. You see the governor in a snowstorm, you see the governor day to day on the news, you know who she is. But folks like Joe Trillo, Patricia Morgan, who have 100% name recognition among media folks, political junkies, etc., are just not in the picture for 2/3 of Rhode Island voters. It's a reminder that just because we think someone is well known does not mean that's true of the whole electorate.
But even a step further, if you take some statewide people, like say Attorney General, General Treasurer, Secretary of State, and ask the same question, you're going to get a don't know of 40–50%, because people don't zero in on these offices, just the top offices.
Including, it's not a campaign issue statewide, but the Speaker of the House and the Senate President, who control everything, are still running in the high 50s, low 60s of I don't know, have no
absolutely.
opinion, which is horrifying. However, the don't knows for Alan Fung and the don't know for Gina Raimondo are at least 20% apart, and it gives him a chance to shimmy.
Well, especially when his favorable is 50% and his unfavorable is 25%. It's a 2-to-1, positive to negative. So that 25% that don't know, he can shape those towards the favorable side.
More numbers to come, and Trillo and Fung predictably are chipping at each other. The B team versus the B team. Stay with us.
Heard you have a nickname for Joe Trillo now?
I was being a little tongue-in-cheek when I, mentioned Trader Joe earlier.
I understand that he's upset because he believes that I'm going to cost him the election.
10 points for honesty for Joe Trillo there.
Yeah, but as I started the conversation with you yesterday on the radio, I was like, really, guys? Come on, man. Yeah, first of all, Trillo's running as an independent.
Right.
He's polling at 5, 6, 7% with you. Why in God's name is Alan Fung labeling him now?
Because, I agree with you there. Now I think it's too early. I think Alan Fung is going after Joe Trillo too early. But I really believe he does have to go at Joe Trillo at some point, because that 6% of the vote that Joe Trillo is getting is not votes that will go to Gina Raimondo. A lot of them are Republicans, and Gina's only polling 6% among Republicans. Alan Fung's polling 70%. So if Trillo, if I remember correctly, was polling about 9% among Republicans, probably 7 or 8% of them are going to go to Alan Fung, and only about 1% is going to go to the governor. So that will put him ahead. That's why he's trying to keep his numbers as low as possible.
So calling him Trader Joe is cute. I don't know how much he paid for that one, but it just feels like the same old song and dance between these two guys already. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think if I was working on the Fung campaign, I'd be very frustrated with Joe Trillo too. I wonder to what extent this is just a genuine frustration coming out from Alan Fung himself and from his campaign team, that this guy went rogue by jumping out of the Republican primary where you would have expected him to be and is now independent.
Again, since most of you don't know who he is, I guess. Well, viewers to this show, it might be different, right?
I feel like your viewers know.
Joe's a longtime Republican.
Yeah.
Yes. Where's Brandon Bell, the Republican chairman, would have the ability to take two guys, knock some heads, and say, listen, I'm running the show around here. This time we're not going to eat our own.
Yeah, I think Brandon Bell's close to Alan Fung, so I think there's an element there where Joe Trillo, was saying out loud when he made this move that he thought the party was too much already in Fung's pocket. Whatever it is, it's messy, and luckily for them, as I'm sure we're going to talk about, we now have someone coming in on the other side as an independent who could hurt Gina Raimondo.
Yeah. But the benefactor of all this, of Alan Fung and Joe Trillo fighting each other, is going to be the governor. Because as long as these two keep fighting with each other and taking votes from each other and passing them back and forth, her number is solid. They're not taking votes away from her.
Well, here's the thing. I've long admired and enjoyed Joe Trillo. I think in his heyday, he was a very serious constituent advocate. I think he kind of played ball a little bit in his last couple of years with the Democrats. But then again, as we see the shift of progressives in the legislature, conservative Republicans and conservative Democrats were kind of leaning on each other. But what I don't understand, I've had him here 16 times to talk about it. What is this hitch the wagon to Trump thing? Your numbers on Trump in Rhode Island are abominable. And on the independent side, 57% according to your poll, don't buy the Trump Act. No. Where in God's name does he think he's got a path on the independent side, being the Trump for the Trillo Trump?
Well, and Trillo
Rhode
even,
Island,
Joe
Trump
Trillo
for
even
Trillo, whatever.
said, people saw an excerpt there from Tim White's interview last night with Joe Trillo, and Joe Trillo even said to Tim, his biggest concern in the poll wasn't his own numbers. He's like, we can grow from there, 6%. It's the president's pretty abysmal numbers with the Rhode Island electorate. The president's at like a 30% approval rating in the state. Maybe not a shock because it's such a blue state, but as you said, Joe Trillo made himself synonymous with Trump.
I feel like he's just hanging on for a Trump visit.
Well, I think
by the way, he's so toxic, who would want him in anywhere now, right now?
Agree, but I think what Joe Trillo's plan originally was simply, I'm going to tie my wagon around Trump. And if I do that, if I can get Trump's 35% of the vote, I could win the governor's race with that, as long as I get the Trump people to come on board with me. But the Trump numbers are going down so quickly now, that's not going to work.
And by the way, that bifurcates the Republican numbers. That's not a pure number.
Right, I agree.
That's not a one-on-one number.
But that
well,
has
Joe
to be his
Trillo
rationale.
at least says, he also is going to make a big play for conservative Democrats. He looks at the numbers in Johnston, where Donald Trump did much better than Republican candidates have historically, and there he sees a path with some of those voters who now.
But those voters, if he wasn't on issues, he could marry them. With a Trump cloak around him, they won't let him in the door. It doesn't make any sense.
He's drawing 5% among Democrats, so I don't see him really drawing much from the Democrats at all.
Patricia Morgan. Oh, yeah, who's she? Can we put that graphic up? Patricia Morgan versus Gina Raimondo. This is an interesting play. Again, Patricia Morgan, someone I feel a fondness for. I think everybody does. I think she spits out a lot of data and doesn't do a lot of homework. So she's a kind of a hit and run statewide candidate. If she ever could put 4 salient thoughts back to back to back and do some research, I think people would be more impressed with her. But having said that, the 25% with a relative unknown quotient, that's not so bad.
No, it's not so bad. The thing is, that 25%, is that more anti-Governor Raimondo support, or is it Patty Morgan support? I have to believe a lot of her at this point, because 70% don't know her. It's anti-governor support.
But either way, it would be a vote for her that she'd take, right? So in the end, the motivation to be with her. I actually look back. I think one thing that actually makes that number even maybe a little more impressive than it looks is I looked back at our poll from this month in 2010, so 2 elections ago. John Robitaille, almost unknown at the time Republican, was only polling 13%. You had a more conservative Democrat at that time,
he got
Frank
close.
Caprio, and he ended up being the second place finisher, 33% behind Lane Chafee. So I think being at 25, especially in a race that's getting as crowded as this, where you're not going to need 50% at this rate to win the election, you're on your way.
But she's got to come through a primary versus Alan Fung and maybe Giovanni Ferrosi, who you did not put in this poll because he was not formally announced.
He hadn't filed yet.
And what is he filed now?
He did. He filed
with his campaign
right
manager
after we were getting this done.
But you have trouble polling the Republican primary.
Oh yeah, we do not poll Republican primaries in the past due to the fact that you don't know who's voting in the Republican primary. It could be as small as 30,000 statewide or as high as 60,000. It's very difficult to get a sample for that. And it's very difficult to get an accurate sample.
If they closed their primaries, would be more.
It would be a little bit easier because independents can vote in either primary.
Right.
And
a lot of sabotage goes on in the Republican primary with an open primary law.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can get. I mean, we've had some good sized open primaries for the Republicans. Lincoln Chafee, Steve Laffey was a big turnout.
Donald Trump's presidential primary, top 60,000 votes, and you had there.
That's not going to happen this year.
Probably not at this rate. But again, politics has been so wild locally and nationally in the last couple of years that I'm much more wide open to any eventuality.
4 years ago, it was about 35,000 in the Republican primary. So I'd probably see about the same.
And one thing Alan Fung has is a geographic base. Yes. He's got the 3rd largest city in the state. He has a very strong organization there. You get lots of Republican votes out of that. That you can't undercount the importance of that when the primary comes around.
Okay. When we come back, there might be another fly in the ointment that the governor isn't too comfortable with. Stay with us. And then you get this guy. Interested to see if he's got any gray hair since his young days.
Since 2006.
As the Secretary of State and a candidate for U.S. Senate, and then kind of bailed out of that whole thing. Matt Brown is establishing an exploratory committee to run for governor, and he says he'll do so as an independent. So now we're going to have a crowded stage for the Channel 12 debates, right?
Yes.
If Joe Trillo doesn't leave, and who else? If Link Chafee decides, although I have a tepid feeling about Link Chafee.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
He's hard. He's always hard to guess. But I did talk to Lincoln Chafee last night a little bit for this story about Matt Brown's unexpected run, and the former governor, he did say to me, he said, Ted, it's a tough job, running for governor and being the governor. I think as you get closer to the filing deadline, it's different to talk about running and talk about your differences with Gina Raimondo and then actually mounting a full campaign.
Sure.
I'm by no means predicting he won't.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, he said he'll decide by late May.
I always congratulate people when they decide to run because it takes a lot of work to actually prepare and think about it, and then it's a burden. It is a large task. I mean, I might take them on, you might take them on the issues, but it's not easy. Mm-hmm. As an independent, though, he's going to articulate a pretty liberal philosophy. Mm-hmm. We know his politics, and Gina is not going to be extremely happy about this.
No, that's going to negate the Joe Trillo factor. Now there's someone in the race that's going to take votes away from the governor, very progressive. That's going to hurt the governor, there's no question. Alan Fung, I'm sure, is very happy today if Matt Brown does decide to run as independent.
The conspiratorial stuff in Rhode Island politics, somebody on the Republican side inspiring Matt Brown to pull a little to the left. I mean, that's all part of the
that doesn't fit with Matt Brown's
conversation will be like
people
that,
will
right?
talk about it. I mean, that's hard. Matt Brown doesn't strike, has never struck, I think, folks as the type for that. He's over and over, as I called people in the last 24 hours about this, they said he's an idealist. He's idealistic. That's where he comes from on this. He has a long letter on his website, unveiled this morning, as you say, articulating some more liberal positions. He wants a state-run bank. He wants so much renewable energy around that we're exporting it within a decade or two. He wants to bring prescription drugs from Canada. I mean, you're talking now, people remember how Lincoln Chafee became governor. It was because you had the more moderate to conservative vote split multiple ways. You had Frank Caprio taking some of it, John Robitaille taking some of it, Ken Block taking some of it. Well, it looked like this year you might again have a bunch of candidates splitting conservatives and letting Gina Raimondo get the left. Maybe not anymore.
And when it comes to aesthetics, good-looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
Speaks well, presents well, looks like somebody that you want to see. It's just the nature of the physicality of politics.
And remember, he was well liked. He won a Democratic primary as the unendorsed Democrat over Ed Iderman, who was the acting Secretary of State at that point. He was running for U.S. Senate till everything fell apart on him, but he was very popular at the time.
The fall apart we got to remember and do some more work on. He had a campaign finance issue going on there, which
didn't look good when it came out. It was a multi-state agreement with money being funneled back and forth between different states.
A little too much corporate Democratic politics there, but it probably won't hurt him in the end. You know what dawns on me? We got 30 seconds left in the show, and we have not talked a single issue.
No.
Well, I mean, but that's what the polling data. I mean, this is the fun part. The truth of the matter is that people got to pay attention to what these people stand for. Mm-hmm. That'd be a nice idea, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need to know who's on the ballot. We don't know if everyone here is going to file in June. We don't know if everyone's going to stay in the race. March is pretty early to decide what we know what the field will be.
This is just a snapshot for WPRI and RWU University.
You have to say that. You always say that.
It's what it is. This is a starting point for the election season. That's why we did the poll, I think.
Yep.
I think I'm going to nickname you Snapshot. Joe
Fleming.
Snapshot Fleming. It's true. Thanks, guys. It's true. Big show tomorrow. We'll tell you about it next. He's built Bryant University to a world-class institution, and he's going to stick around as the president there. Ron Makeley will be our guest on the program tomorrow night. Don't forget to tune in weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening. Careful in the snow.